live from the Labadi Beach Hotel ahead of the graphic business breakfast meeting that's on the theme securing the economy with agriculture. But I'm sitting down with two gentlemen here at the Labadi Beach Hotel ahead of that, and we're talking agriculture financing. My guests, Mr. Kenneth Ashibe is Managing Director of Graphic Communications Group Limited, and Mr. Alhassan Andani is Managing Director, Stanbic Bank Ghana Limited. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. But you're hosting us, Kenneth.
Both
really,
of us,
so
in fact,
yes,
it's a graphic business Stanbic breakfast meeting.
Sure. Can we go back to the whole idea of this breakfast meeting, Kenneth, before we start talking?
You know, what we sought to do as journalists and as the fourth estate of the realm, we recognized the fact that it was important to look for Ghanaian solutions for Ghanaian challenges. So it was critical to be able to put together a platform that brought together Ghanaian brains in Ghana, you know, to come and take on topical issues. So you found out that in selecting the topics, we looked at Ghana, we looked at the context and looked at the time to make sure that, you know, the topics were very relevant. And with a partnership with Stanbic as well, you know, also they knowing the pulse of business, you know, were able to come up with things that we thought, if addressed, would help Ghana. So we've dealt with very, very important topics, and that's what we have done all this while. And I was just telling my brother that, you know, in as much as today is my last day, this platform would have to continue, and I'm pretty sure Graphic and Stanbic would continue to do this. And it's interesting that we'll be able to bring a partner like Multimedia on board, so that it's not only the gathering of the people who are here, but we're able to bring the whole of Ghana, you know, through the media, the medium of radio and TV, to also participate in the conversation. And for me, most of the time, apart from the panel that we gather, it's also the people who attend and the quality of the questions and the suggestions that happen. And increasingly, you find out that issues that come up here are taken by other media houses, policymakers take it, various players also take issues that come up here, and Ghana gets better for it. So if you keep on doing it, and most importantly for us in the media, is to go back and do follow-ups, to say what are the promises that policymakers made, what are the promises that private sector made that they're going to do, and make sure that there's a follow-through. And so that is what has been driving this graphic business Stanbic breakfast series.
But this particular conversation on agriculture is also critical because the budgets, we're looking ahead of the 2018 budgets, and I see that you're trying to make a statement.
Well, that's exactly the reason why we chose the topic. So when we sat with Stanbic, we looked at what was one big thing that we thought that if we dealt with in this budget, you know, could have a large impact. And if you consider Ghana, you know, the fact that we are an agrarian economy, and the fact that agriculture employs about 50% of our people, and the fact that agriculture has been growing the past years at, you know, a paltry 3.3%, and it's projected to grow like that, we need to make the quantum leap. And the challenges that confront us in agriculture are solvable. And if you solve that, the impact that on the whole country would be real. You know, if you're able to get a lot of growth coming from agriculture and agribusiness, you know, and you're able to manage the whole chain up to where we're marketing it, you'll be able to lift Ghanaians out of poverty and create wealth. You know, so it's the reason why we're choosing this, so that we can shape the thought. We're bringing various people here so that they would speak, and the Minister for Finance would hear, the Minister for Agric would hear, and the President would hear. And most importantly, Parliament as well will hear, so that when the debate starts, they also can capture the views of Ghanaians and the views of experts. So it really is the reason why this topic is very, very crucial at this time.
Ms. Andani, when we talk agric, how much of it is government and how much of it is private sector?
That's a tough question. Agric, and we have to contextualize agric. I think agric is a confluence of all the sciences. It's a confluence of all the sciences, whether it's atmospheric sciences, physical sciences, chemical sciences, processing, packaging, food management. All of that is agriculture. And it's time Ghanaians move away from a sense of agriculture as a gathering trade, that you just go and get a piece of land and that is agriculture. That is not. So to the extent that it's the confluence of all the sciences to do it well, including machinery, the appropriate machinery to do it, for processing, for storage, whether it's dry storage, cold storage, packaging, shelf life for product, that's all agriculture. You've got to get all of that right in order to get agriculture right. But unfortunately, what we see is often the farmer end. That is still very prehistoric, pre-modern agriculture. And our efforts, and hopefully this platform will throw light on us looking at agriculture as a very, very profitable, engaging business, that involves all the sciences. And that is where the role of government comes in. Because if you look at, and I have had the privilege to work closely with CSR, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and if you look at the amount of work that they have done in agriculture, which is government sponsored, but we need to string this through into the whole chain, that's government. Sometimes the enabling environment, agriculture everywhere in the world, especially the developed world, have been the forerunner of industrialization, and it's been through deliberate government policy. So that's where government comes in. But the private sector, first and foremost, understands that that is the mother of the economy. That is probably where all the money begins to be made, so you can diversify into other areas. And that's where private sector people must see agriculture as a truly profitable business and attracting the best brains. I was just talking to Ken, who says he has this farm, and the issues around management. Just as you have to put up very elaborate management structures to run Graphic or Stanbic Bank, you've got to put in those elaborate management structures to run an agri-business. But we just think that agriculture is about a farmer having a piece of land or a goat or some pig somewhere. That is not agriculture. That is agriculture pre-modern economics. And we have to address our mind to agriculture being a profitable business, being the confluence of all the sciences, and indeed, very complicated. You've got to get all those sciences right in order to get agriculture right, and we better pay attention.
Ken, since you're a farmer yourself, is this an area that you find that the banks see as a profitable area?
Very interesting question. Well, I think it's some of the banks see it, and they see the potential in it. And the reason why I'm sure the banks have not gone into agriculture the way it's because of exactly the way Mr. Nani says it, where we see that it's only about just going to put some seed in there, and just leave it. So then it's become a very risky venture. So when you're talking to the banks, they're asking you for your plan. They're asking you, for a business plan that shows them that whatever money, whatever resources they put in it, you are able to turn it around. Unfortunately, one of the sciences that Mr. Nani even left out was the social sciences. There's a social science part of agriculture that we also need to do. But unfortunately, we have not done that. But increasingly, you're beginning to see people get into it, even our schools, where if you had any punishment, what they had to tell you was to get to the land. So everybody's psyche was that. But very recently, I'm beginning to see a few documentaries where I'm seeing some schools. I think Okiapiman was one of them, where they're beginning to take the children back to and show them that this is something that can be profitable. So there's a conversation that we should have, and that's what I'm really happy that we're having this conversation with Stanbic, because Stanbic understands, agribusiness, and, so we need to get all of us to start appreciating the fact that if we as Ghana want to develop, then as the Bible says, we need to put our monies where our hearts are, where really it would have an impact. And that would mean that shaping agriculture so that when the banks are even coming into agriculture, the conversation should not even be money. Because most of the time, what is actually required is not money. It is ability to put together all the various things, and starting from the market. Being able to identify the market, the right market, and being able to work back to it, And also, what we have done, and that's what has been the bane of the structure of our economy, where all we do is to export the raw commodities. We need to get to the point where I'm doing rice, and I'm thinking about rice and saying to myself, what value could I add to rice? Could I be producing sake, in such a way that it is sake that I'm starting with? So I determine the quality of the kind of rice I even need to plant, and then work it back all the way up to that particular point, So once we start having that conversation, and we start having those of us who have gone to school, learned the trade, learned marketing, learned all the various sciences, as Mr. Ndani is saying, and be able to bring that to bear on agribusiness, then I am pretty sure we can bring, the banks also onto the table as we do all this conversation and start shaping all of that.
Yeah. So, Mr. Nani, how easy is access to credits for agri finance in Astambik?
Look, I must say, and it's back to the point Ken has made, it's easy to the extent that you have a doable model. And we've had agriculture in the country where it's been from the farm to the market. And the farmer does everything and has no clue what the market wants. So, for example, nobody's actually come out and said, this is the total national requirement of the most staple maize. The total is X. And this is how it is required on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, right up to the end of the year. And then work that backwards. Then we know how many hectares of land to put under maize production, how to space it out into the market. Once we have that, we will be happy to do the agriculture. And I was just telling Ken, we have what we call the market to farm approach, where we will take an off-taker of any agricultural produce, whether it's on the shelf, whether it's exporting, be able to determine specific quantities, at what price, especially at the market, and then work it back. Because it is only when you know how much the market would offtake your product that you can actually produce below that to become profitable. So that's what I'm saying. It is not the question of just coming for, loan to go buy a tractor and then go start farming when you don't know, what is the aggregate what is your contribution to the aggregate demand of that product? Who is buying it and at what price?
Is it the farmer's job?
It is an industry job. It's an industry job, and that is why platforms like this are very important, that we're awakening policymakers, first and foremost, to say that, look, let's have a total calculation of the national demand for various agricultural produce and find out who at the moment is selling it, ensuring that, just as we do for cocoa, if the cocoa price was not right, and we've seen it in the past, when it was not right for the farmer, what did? They cut down the trees. So we go back and take the international price of cocoa, which is advertised, and take a share off for administration and other things, and give the whole bulk to the farmer. So the farmer sees value, and therefore we've seen cocoa yields from the mid-70s when they started to cut, now go up. We can do that exactly for all the other crops. So it's policy, it's industry, it is a farmer. And who is a farmer really? If I were processing fertilizer for the market, am I a farmer? I'm not a farmer. You understand? If I were doing agrochemicals to kill weeds or pests, am I a farmer? I'm not a farmer. So, again, let's be very careful who is a farmer. Otherwise,
Have we defined that well?
We need to be careful. That's what I'm saying. That's why, for me, a platform like this is important. It's not just man with the hoe or the tractor or the guy tending the pigs who is a farmer. The processor, the one who would slaughter and dress it and store it, and is he a farmer? So we need to be careful so we can have that whole industry play in a manner that everybody benefits and feeds off. And for me, for an economy like this is the lowest hanging fruit. Back to Ken's, we don't need that much resources. We need just better thinking, coordination, organization, and then we're in the game. Not much money is required to lift us to another level.
Interest rates with you, because when you talk access to credit, you want to talk about interest rates. But maybe kind of just on what he was saying about the definition of a farmer, I've just been thinking about it. We just use it. I'm not sure we quite defined it.
It's the reason why I say to myself that I'm not a farmer, I'm an agribusiness person. I think that's how we need to start looking at it, so that we need to get everybody to realize that you are in the agribusiness business. So that whether you are tilling the land, whether you are providing extension services, whether you are providing, processing, whether you are selling it, everybody is in that business. And it's a business. So it's something that you need to study. It's something that you need to learn. It's something that we need to put together. So the definition of it is we need to see, because you see, typically take cocoa. If you take all of us in the tropics, from Africa to Asia, we do all the work. but we get less than 15%, of the value from it. And, our brothers in Europe and in America, they do very little, but they get all the money. So we need to start rethinking this whole agribusiness thing and start saying to ourselves that how do we harness maximum output out of that? Because it is a shame that I remember one of the things that got my mind changed. We were in Washington and there was a friend I met at a conference, 32-year-old Ted, took me to his farm. We flew a chopper to see the extent of his farm. He's a third-generation person in agriculture, and this is the farm he flew me over was what he has done, 32 years, and he has it end to end, in terms of all the crops and all the products that he's dealing with. And it's not end to end of something that he's doing alone, but he knows his partners and he knows everything that's happening. So we need to start getting policymakers to start this. They have to start it. And then we need to get all the players, including our schools, including parents, including businesses, everybody, even for us. It's a shame that if you take a paper like Graphic, we don't have a page dedicated to agriculture. And I'm sure if you ask, multi-TV, we're not spending a lot of, so all of us have roles to play in making sure that we're focusing on this, but not as farming, but as agribusiness.
I think about a year, 2 or 3 ago, we're talking mechanized agriculture, bringing machines to do the work instead of the manual way of working. Have you seen any change? Has there been any improvements?
Very little. Very little. My farm is in Abutiakota, somewhere in the Volta region, and the farmers struggle to be able to get access to that. But you see, again, that whole conversation was just out of sync. So just bringing tractors when you have not prepared the people who are even going to handle the tractors. So you find out that most of these equipment spend a lot more time moving on the roads than actually spending time on the farms. And what kind of equipment are we bringing in? I am told that in Ghana, some of the tractors we bring in our plowing depth are such that we destroy the land. So it has to be holistic. We need to start really thinking about what it is that we do. I look at some of the Indian and then the South American experiences, and they use very semi-mechanized equipment. And if you look at because of the sizes of the farms, that tend to work better than you bringing these big equipment that the farmers are not able to handle. When we bring them, we also don't think about after-sales support. We don't think about even the right usage of it. So it has to be, when these conversations are had, we shouldn't have them as a one of, we go and bring this and come and throw them in. But we need to look at them. And that is why academia is so important. And Mr. Nani speaks about CSR. We need to have a conversation where we're bringing academia, we're bringing the research and the business people together. And also, when we're doing that, not to leave the farmers, the actual farmers who are on the field, also, so that we all are talking together. So that, some of these things, CSR are gratis, the various agriculture, engineering, faculties, how are they also helping shape, what it is that we need, and how are we providing it, how are we maintaining it, and how is that resulting in improvement in productivity? And so we bring them. You find out that most of those tractors, you go and a lot of them are parked. Let me give you a typical example. When you're driving on the Dodowa Road, you see them, some of them were given to people who were really not farmers. They're sitting there. They're not really doing any work. Some of them are not even suited to what it is that we do. So, yes, maybe a few people might have benefited from it, but we need a bit more talking about it. And that's why, for me, I think this platform is important,
Let's credit, unless there's something you want to add to this particular one.
Just back to the use of equipment, and I would say that if you take a tractor, a good tractor should do 8 to 10 acres a day plowing. You have a window of 30 days to do plowing, so that's about close to 300 to 400 acres. So really, if you're a farmer not doing 400 acres, you don't need a tractor. Now, we're working with a very brilliant fintech, agro fintech, that will be able to place GSM equipment stuff on these tractors, so we can pull it. If you take the total number of tractors in this country and we're to optimize it, we'll be able to plow every arable land that we needed. So it's back to the point, it's just being clever around it. You don't take a tractor when you have a 50-acre farm. It's a total waste of that equipment. You know, and several other equipment that we just buy without thinking the machine hours, that's the economic machine hours of that equipment, and how we can pull it and use it. You know, it's interesting.
I'm tempted to ask: is there a country that we should be looking up to? Should we be copying what somebody has done that has worked so well?
Very easy. I mean, and there's nothing under the earth that has not been really done and done properly. Brazil, if we look at the northern Brazil, the ecological, features of northern Brazil compared to Ghana, is just about a break off of the land mass. So, and Brazil is doing very well in agriculture and applying a lot of scientific into agriculture. And of course, the US and other countries have done, South Africa, done very well in agriculture. Zambia, Zimbabwe, before the land seizures, we've seen fantastic examples of agribusiness that have led economic growth. And we shouldn't reinvent the wheel, as I said.
You know what is also interesting? Because a lot of our officials travel with the excuse of going to see what others are doing. But we don't see.
Interesting, unfortunately for us now, not only are officials traveling, but you have Ghanaian business people also traveling and are beginning to do a bit of that. So as we speak, we need to start, and so for us in the media, we need to start looking out for people who are doing good work with agriculture, and you find that, farmers market is a typical example. It's a Ghanaian person who has started. He's looking at it from the marketing point of view and has then worked back with all the sciences and engineering, and then working with Ghanaian farmers to actually do it right. There are few good examples that are around. So as we urge our policymakers to also be able to translate some of the learnings, there are things that Ghanaian private businesses should also be able to do. We should be able to force some of the things to happen, as we also expect them to also come close to us. And it also be important for us, as I said, the media, to also look at some of the people who are doing it right and see how we can sell a lot of that for a lot of people to see. One of the interesting things, like if we, in all of this pulling together, and when Mr. Nani talks about the different sciences, is for universities to be able to say that, like projects that students do, instead of doing where you say it's somebody only in agric who has a separate project, bring separate teams together. So people in agric, people in the marketing faculties, people in even the medical faculties, all of them coming together right from first year and deciding that this is a project that we're working together, multidisciplinary, and start working so that the agric engineering person is looking at some tools that they can do. So by the time they finish in 4 years, you might have started a business. That is the complete route, So we need to be a bit innovative, and I think the word about it is being smart with agric. We've not done that. We've done the hard and difficult way of doing it. Being smart, one of the biggest things that kills a lot of people who are involved in agribusiness is post-harvest losses. We are not able to manage the things that we produce. How do we get everybody around the table to start, having that conversation? And I think that academia also have a good role to play.
We've got to wrap up this in some few minutes, because the breakfast meeting proper with the various guests would start in a while. But I want to talk about interest rates. Yeah, it scares a lot of the farmers from going forward to the banks.
I think let's start a proper definition of interest rates. Interest rate is the rent cost for money. It's like a resource, and you have to rent it. So somebody's worked hard for it, and you have to rent it for the person. How much would the person charge you? Just like any kind of rent for vehicles, for houses, for machinery. It's money, it's a resource. You could have converted it to a building, to a house, to wherever you can rent at a certain rate. So it's a rental cost for money. So that's where it starts from. And how it builds up into a price is important. So it is a cost that every business feels, and therefore must be contextualized within the economy in which that rent is found. Now, unfortunately, in a very high inflation environment like Ghana, the rent base for money starts with the inflation. That's a rent base. So if before you start talking of interest rate, first of all, find out where is the base? Where is the floor? The floor is the interest rate, is the inflation rate. Then before you start to build up. Okay, and as you build up, you're now looking at who wants it for a day, who wants the rent for a month, who wants it for 5 years, who wants it for 10 years, and the rental moves in that order. That's how interest rates have built up. So it impacts everybody. We understand that agriculture is an expensive business, and that is why we all have to work to ensure that the inflation, which is the base upon which all interest rate is determined, is brought down to its barest minimum. And therefore, go back to the countries that have the lowest inflation. US inflation is under 1% or 1%. Therefore, if you are building anything on 1%, you are still, now if you come to a country where inflation, even at its best in the past 3 years, is at 12 or 13%, and you start to build from there, that's where this interest rate issue comes up. So let's, as a country, begin to understand it and not point fingers. It's just like, as I said, rental for any resource. Yeah. Machinery, houses, cars.
Sure. Yeah. In the absence of the inflation, coming down, is there anything, because agric is so important to us, that's why we have this platform, this conversation.
And for example,
should we expect the banks to do anything?
Oh, yes, we are. And we are currently working very closely with, before EXIM was EDIF, where we went to share some of agri-business proposals. And EXIM was able to give us facilities at 12.5%, to the farmer, which was such a big gap between what the commercial rate was and what EDIF was providing. But the other thing, again, is as we keep stressing, agriculture is a business, and you shouldn't feed people on something that is not sustainable. So if I'm in agriculture, I want to organize my work in such a way that I can absorb all of my absorbable costs, including the cost of financing. Because again, it introduces a lot of inefficiencies. We've seen in the past where, when we had sectorial lending, which was decreed by government. So government said you could lend X into agriculture and charge X interest rate. What happened? People took those monies ostensibly for agriculture and used it to do other things, which was not agriculture. So you want to take away that imposed indiscipline and let people just understand that this is my business. If I organize this very well, please don't get into agriculture before you realize you can get your money back or not. It's everything you do, you can determine from the plan whether you can get the money back at a profit or not.
Sure. So let me just run through the speakers for today's breakfast meeting. We've got Dr. Oswefri Akoto, Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Al-Hassan Yakubu, former Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Abu Sakara is an agriculturist, and Mr. Edward Kariwa, General Secretary, Agric Workers Union. They will be speaking on the theme securing the economy with agriculture. Finally, Mr. Kenneth Ashibi, what should our viewers and listeners be expecting from us?
One of the first things is that I'm pretty sure not all of the people who have views who could be here are here. So I'm hoping that they will use the multimedia interactive platforms to also get their views across, tell us what once the program starts rolling on. But definitely these gatherings tend to provide a lot of insight as to what is happening, and I'm hoping the viewers and listeners would be able to take ideas as to how to help us leverage our economy using agriculture. I'm hoping that they would, the audience would ask some insightful questions. There are people who have called me who are players in agric, who, when they saw the topic, said they wanted to be here because people really have issues, that can be helped when we get people, the various duty bearers who are coming in. So I hope, especially for the Minister for Agric, exactly. Currently, he holds the key to driving this agric thing, and I'm hoping that he would have people who would take all the questions, who would take all the suggestions, and that we would execute. We don't want this to become another talk shop. We want it to be something that would affect policy. The budget is coming. We should be able to get big ideas that can go into the budget, and then hopefully all of us as Ghanaians will also start changing our thinking about farming and start thinking about agribusiness, and all of us would push to get it done.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Nani, for your time. Enjoy the meeting and breakfast as well. Stay with us. You're watching the AM show. It's a special programming coming to you live from the Labadi Beach Hotel.